Hello, beautiful people. Long time no see. We are coming back with a highly requested series. You all love the Once Upon a Point series where I talk to you about tales of my time at New York City Ballet and as a professional dancer. And this is one we have not touched on. Touring. You guys want to know all about touring. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's touch on a little bit about touring in general. When a ballet company goes on tour, the company handles all of it, especially if it's a full company tour. Sometimes there are full company tours, sometimes they're half company tours. I believe in the last decade or so, New York City Ballet had like a smaller group go on tour and it was called New York City Ballet Moves. I don't believe they do that anymore, but with New York City Ballet, most of the time the entire company went. And I will link a couple things for you guys to look at. There's a great documentary bringing back Balanchine on the company's tour to Russia. That was pre my time in the company. We did some videos about our time in London. I cannot find them. If anybody knows where those videos went, let me know. That was my second year in the company. We went to London. There was also a documentary on our time in Paris. I can't find that one either. So I don't know what happened to all of these things. If anybody has ever come across them, please let me know. And then, of course, some of the performances that were done in Paris in the last few years aired on PBS and are online, so I'm going to commentate those at some point because they have already aired. But the company would do the whole thing. So they would do flights, transportation, hotel, all of that. So we just had to kind of show up. In my time at New York City Ballet, I toured to London, Paris, Copenhagen, Tokyo, and I did a smaller tour to Barcelona. And of course, then we did our annual tour to Saratoga every summer, and often we would go to Washington, D.C. at the Kennedy Center. Obviously, national, domestic tours were easier. The whole company went to D.C., the whole company went to Saratoga every year. They still do. At one point, we were doing 3 weeks every summer. I believe it's now down to 1, possibly 2 weeks, which is sad. But that's sort of an annual residency every summer in Saratoga Springs, New York. And then it was at one point we were going to the Kennedy Center every March, like early spring. I don't know if that happens anymore. It's been a minute, y'all. When you go on tour, oftentimes with New York City Ballet, and this is the case with any company, usually what they do is they'll take their most well-known rep. So for us, it was a lot of Balanchine and Robbins. So we would always take Serenade, we would always take Symphony in C. We would always take Robbins' Dances at a Gathering, Divertimento No. 15, Western Symphony, these big ballets that we were known for. Then what they might do is stick 1 or 2 new premieres in there, new choreography or a lesser known piece. But really, when New York City Ballet comes to town, particularly if it's overseas, people want to see Balanchine. People want to see Jerome Robbins. We don't need to go over there and do Swan Lake because, first of all, we can't compete with the Royal Swan Lake. Second of all, that's not what we are known for. So touring ballets and the repertoire that is selected is very strategic when going on tour. Kennedy Center, we would take all these same things. Also, my first year at the Kennedy Center, we took Balanchine's A Midsummer Night's Dream, something else we're very much known for. And most ballet companies will follow suit. If there is one piece that is their signature, they're going to take that. I remember in London, I did Western Symphony, I did Serenade, I did Symphony in C. In Paris, actually, we took Divertimento No. 15. I actually debuted in Divertimento No. 15 over there. And we also took, the other big one I did over there was Carousel. We took Wheeldon's Carousel. So a big night, we took some Christopher Wheeldon and stuck it in there. Then again, of course, we always, Serenade and Symphony in C are the 2 that we always did. In Copenhagen, same thing. Tokyo was probably actually the most interesting tour I did in terms of repertoire. I did Serenade, but we also took Dances at a Gathering. I might have debuted over there. I think I might have debuted in Tokyo. We took West Side Story, where I was Maria in West Side Story. Yeah, I know, but this was 2009. We took Piano Concerto No. 2, Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 2, which is also known as Ballet Imperial. If anybody's ever heard the term Tchaikovsky Piano Concerto No. 2, it is a redo of Ballet Imperial. Ballet Imperial was the original. and in tutus. And Balanchine kind of updated, tweaked it, this and that, and then we started doing it in dresses. So, for example, ABT does Ballet Imperial, New York City Ballet does 𝐂𝐨𝐿 Piano Concerto No. 2. They are the same ballet with costume changes and some tweaks. Another one that always goes is Tarantella, and I have some funny stories about that from Tokyo. But so when you go on tour, you are showcasing the company. This is not like, oh, we're in our 8-week winter season in New York, so we can try different things out. We can do new things. No, tours have to be successful. So you're kind of like putting on your best show over there. So oftentimes we would do the same ballets over and over and over for a good reason. When you travel on tour, the schedule can get really challenging, particularly if you're going internationally. This is, again, just from my experience. The company will book your flights. The company books the hotel. Corps members and soloists share rooms. So if you were in the corps or a soloist, you had to have a roommate in a hotel. Principals get their own rooms. I roomed with 𝐅𝐢𝐧𝐝 in Paris and Copenhagen. Hi, Mary Liz. I roomed with 𝐂𝐨𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐼 in Tokyo. God bless 𝐂𝐨𝐿𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐼, because I got terrible food poisoning while we were there. I will tell you about that later. Love you, Janelle. In London, I also roomed with Mary Liz. Mary Liz and I were roommates most of the time. And it is a big cattle call travel over there. I mean, I remember we met at State Theater, or David H. Koch Theater, got on the bus, went to the airport, checked in together. It's a big, like, mass thing. And when I was at City Ballet, there were like 100 dancers in the company, and every single one of us went, apprentices included. So it was a big to do. The travel day is a lot when you're going on tour. Now, when we went to DC, again, very easy. You could either take the train or the bus. I remember taking the bus, but some dancers opted out and paid their own way to take the train. But when it's international, it's a big one. We're all in the same hotel, and usually you have the travel day. And then I remember, again, I don't know if it's the same now, but once you get there, there is what's called the optional class day. I'm just gonna be real, it's not really optional, because oftentimes there'd be the travel day, and then there would be the day where it was like optional class the next day to kind of get you acclimated to the time. But Peter Martins would teach the class. So it's kind of like when your boss is teaching, nobody misses the optional class. And then you would start. So typically, if it was international, we'd get a day to orient with that optional class. If it was Saratoga, if it was DC, get there, next day we start, because DC was hours away, so was Saratoga. While we were in London, we got to do company class at Pineapple Studios one day, which, if you have ever been to London, Pineapple Studios is kind of the steps that's in New York. It's kind of the steps on Broadway in London. And let me tell you, we might have been 110 at that point, 110 dancers at Pineapple Studios was interesting. I wish I had photos from that, but this was a while ago. Again, if anybody can find the videos, there was like a little video diary that we did in London. This was like, I don't even think YouTube was a thing yet. Please, like, comment it below. I searched and I cannot find it. But there is footage of us taking class one day at Pineapple Studios. And then the very next day, we got to take company class at the Royal Opera House in London, which was dream come true. It was amazing. But we performed at the London Coliseum. In Copenhagen, it was really interesting because this was like the best tour ever. We did 1 week in Copenhagen and 2 weeks in Paris, back to back. So it was a 3-week tour. I mean, if you're going over there, you might as well. But we were in Tivoli, which is the amusement park in the middle of Copenhagen. And I'll insert some photos for you here. It was so interesting because our dressing room, this theater is like in the middle of the theme park. And like the roller coaster is going past your window. It's so interesting. And so you'd be like I was getting ready. There's a picture I was getting ready for Serenade, and you can see the roller coaster going past the window in the middle of Tivoli Gardens. And I remember doing Symphony in C there, and it's not the biggest stage in the world, and trying to get everybody on for Symphony in C was interesting. I think we might have even cut it down a little bit, because you can do that with Symphony in C in the finale. Just don't put as many corps members on, because I remember being like, whew, tight. But that was such an amazing experience. I loved Copenhagen so much. It's so beautiful. I had such a great time. The people are so nice. I would love to go back. That was a really great tour. Paris, we performed both at the Bastille and which is massive. The Bastille is so big. This stage is like, you have the stage, and then on either side of the stage is as big of the stage as a wing. So you have like stage size, wing, stage size, wing. I've never been in a theater that big. I got lost several times because it's just like this cavernous mix of hallways, and there's even like a cafeteria within it. Huge, stunning theater. But the other special thing we got to do was a joint gala with Paris Opera Ballet at the Palais de Garnier. Y'all, just like any Phantom fans, Phantom of the Opera, was living my best life because it's this iconic, the most beautiful theater. The rehearsal room, I will show you some photos. The rehearsal room was like gilded and gold and chandelier, the rehearsal room. And then, of course, the stage. And my parents actually flew over to Paris to watch that show. And they were in the very, 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 very last row in the tippity top of the theater, like, you know. But it was just such an incredible experience. However, the not so great thing about the Garnier is that it is raked. And for anyone that doesn't know, a rake stage is slanted. And we were not used to that. Thankfully, the Bastille, where we were the most of the time, is flat. Rake stage, you're on a hill. And the reason for that is in many old-time, very old theaters, they built them like that because it makes the stage look bigger. And with perspective, it makes everything massive. And just from the audience, it's stunning. For a ballet dancer, it's a nightmare. So, yeah, thankfully, the rehearsal rooms in the Garnier are raked as well. And so you actually get to practice. The studios are all raked. And again, I will insert as many photos as I can here. And that was really special to be able to be in that theater and do that gala. And it was interesting because you got to see the difference in how the Paris Opera Ballet rehearses and how New York City Ballet rehearses. Paris Opera Ballet does, like, I remember doing at least 2 or 3 dress rehearsals for this gala. And it was like rehearsal with makeup, rehearsal with makeup, rehearsal with makeup, then the show. Like full dress rehearsals. City Ballet never does that. We barely do it in costume. We maybe did it once. And we were all just like, another dress rehearsal? Really? We have to wear makeup for dress rehearsal? Like, we never, and I still think to this day because the rep is so big, we never did full hair and makeup for dress rehearsal. And oftentimes dress rehearsal meant in costume with piano on stage. That was it. And so this was like a full production. We rehearsed this gala like 3 times in full everything before we even did it. And I remember all of us were like, like, we don't want to keep rehearsing. We just want to do. It was just so different in the approach of how 2 different companies on 2 different continents work. And it was a lot of rehearsal for us. And I think City Ballet is used to not that much rehearsal. So I remember that being a very interesting experience, is having to rehearse that performance. I did the Corps of Symphony in C at the Garnier. And I just remember with that stage, at one point we have to chaîner, which is a bunch of consecutive turns going down towards the audience. Hence, you guys, stage directions, upstage, downstage. That's why it's like that. Upstage, downstage. Here's the audience. So downstage, down the hill, and just feeling like my legs were on backwards. And just all of us, it was like such a trip because we only did 1 performance there. So it just, I felt bad for the men who had to do maneges, like up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill. So many companies in Europe perform on a rake stage. If you've ever danced on a rake stage, comment below and, you know, let me know your pain. Although if you are used to it, I'm sure it's fine. But the only theater, I believe, on Broadway, there is one theater on Broadway that's raked, and that's Wicked. The Gershwin Theater is also a rake stage. So not only do they have to do that show every night, they have to do it like this. Fun fact. The Broadway production of Wicked is raked. Then in Japan, that was such an amazing experience. We went over to Tokyo. I will say the struggle with Tokyo was the flight over there. I mean, it was like a 15-hour flight. We definitely had a day off when we got there. And like I said on the intro, the day we got there, a couple of us went out for dinner, and I got horrific food poisoning while I was there. I don't know if it was something I ate on the plane or there. My stomach just wasn't used to it, and I had a miserable time at the start. Thankfully, we had that day off. And I was sick all night, and then I thought I was better, and then a bunch of us were going to do some touristy things, and we were about to get on the train, and I got sick again. God bless you, Vincent Paradiso, who gave up his day off to get me back to the hotel. He went with me on the train back to the hotel. Owe you for that one. Yeah, so just really nice people in this company. And Janelle, who went down to the thing to get a nurse. So it was such bad food poisoning. I could not keep anything down for 2 days. I got very, very gaunt over there. And I remember when I finally was better, we were rehearsing Serenade, and Darcy Kistler came up to me and was like, "Katie, are you okay? You look a little green." I was just like, nope. Because the opening pose where you're like this, I remember being like, ugh, that was rough. But I had some great ballets over there. Like I said, PC2, Piano Concerto, West Side Story, debuted in Dances at a Gathering. Did I debut in Dances at a Gathering? I don't know. I can't remember if I debuted there or the season before in New York, but I did Blue Girl in Dances. And then one of my favorite stories from Tokyo, Tyler Peck, I'm Sorry. We were down. We had a lot of people down. We had a lot of people injured for whatever reason. And it got to the point where another ballet that goes all the time on tour is Tarantella. And I remember being in the hallway looking at the sheet, and we were so many people down that Peter Martins turned to me and was like, "Do you know Tarantella? Can I put you on?" And I lied because I did not want to do Tarantella, especially after having food poisoning. I was just like, which was a lie because I did know Tarantella. I had done it in the school and could probably get through it. And then he was like, "Okay, well, I guess Tyler's going to have to do both." So poor Tyler Peck had to do Tarantella in both the matinee and the evening. Sorry, Tyler. But if anybody could do it, it was her. But yeah. And I completely, it was the one and only time I lied and was like, nope, I've never done it. And if you're not a ballet person, Tarantella is so hard. It is a 9-minute sprint. It is like endless, and it's very technical, and it's so not what I would have been good at, but I did know it, and I lied, so I didn't have to do it. So then Tyler had to do both shows. And I remember doing really well in Tokyo, and actually we went to Tokyo in September. We got back to New York, and then I got promoted in October. That was 2009. I got promoted to soloist after that tour because I remember being on almost every ballet, doing both core, soloist, and principal roles. And I think that was the time when they were like, maybe we should promote her at that point. But yeah, it's such a wonderful experience. I don't think I've ever would have gotten to go to these places for that long if it wasn't for touring with New York City Ballet. I mean, we were in Tokyo, I think, for 8 or 9 days, Paris for 2 weeks, Copenhagen a week, London, we were over there for 2 weeks. Another fun story about London, a couple fun stories about London. London was my first big tour with New York City Ballet, other than DC and Saratoga, and a small group of us went to Barcelona. That was not a company tour. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But London, we were there for 2 weeks, and we were at the London Coliseum because obviously Royal had the Opera House. We took class at the Opera House and then went over to the Coliseum to rehearse. On our day off, remember I said we get there and you have a day to adjust. On the day to adjust, myself, Mary Elizabeth Sell, and Erica Pereira, who are both still there with babies, by the way. Shout out to the two of you who are still doing this, who are my age and have children. Props to you. The three of us went out and we just went to see Buckingham Palace, and we went to Westminster Abbey. And as we were standing at Westminster Abbey, if I have a photo, I'll insert it, the Queen rode by in her car, or was being driven by. So I had been in London for a solid 4 hours and saw the Queen in the car. That was really, really special. And then, yeah, so what an amazing experience. And then I remember doing high tea with the two of them on our day off, because when you're over there, you get a day off between weeks. We did our full Tuesday through Sunday, had a day off Monday, and then did the second week. I had high tea. I remember going to the Tower of London with a big group of us, including Daniel 𝐂𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐻t, which was so much fun. Daniel 𝐂𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐻t is a hoot, and just being at the Tower of London with Daniel 𝐂𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐻t was really fun. And then my second week, I was spoiled because the only role I had to do was what we call run-on in Western Symphony, and it's run-on is 4 core girls that only do the finale. Because if you've ever seen Western Symphony, several decades ago, they cut third movement. They don't do third movement anymore. It's too hard. It's just not a fun time. And so once they cut third movement people are still in the finale. So you have this random principal couple that comes in that you've never seen before, and then you have these random 4 core women that come in that you've never seen before, because they still have to make up the numbers in finale. So we call them run-ons because they don't have their own movement. So the only thing I had to do all week was like 2 or 3 shows of run-on core Western. And I think there were like 3 or 4 of us that only had to do that. So it was essentially a week off, because you're on for like maybe 5 minutes, maybe not even. I think last movement Western 6, and you come on through halfway. So like 3 minutes. 3 minutes, 3 times. So I remember like really being able to see London while we were there, because I was barely doing anything the second week. So that was nice. That was very nice. When you're on tour, you don't often get to see as much as you'd want, because obviously your number one priority is to dance while you're there. And so it really depended on what I was dancing as to what I got to do tourist-wise. In Paris, it was a little bit different, because I was further along in the company. This was right before I got promoted, maybe like a year before I got promoted. And I did 2 principal roles on the tour. I did Carousel, leading Carousel, and I was debuting Divertimento while we were there. And so it was a little bit different. You don't want to walk too much. You don't want to, see too much and wear yourself out, because again, you're still there to work, you're still there to dance. And so I remember going to the Eiffel Tower and being like, yep, there it is. I have to do Divert tomorrow. So you had to take it a little bit, depending on what you were doing, you had to take it a little bit differently. So like London, I could do more because I didn't have as much to do the second week. First week, I was really busy. Second week, not so much. And then in Paris, I was like, I'm in Paris, cool. And, didn't get to see as much. Same with Copenhagen, same with Tokyo. So it really depended on what you're dancing. Most of us going over there, obviously, because Balanchine ballets are so hard, don't get to do a lot, because you have to rest your legs, you have to rest your feet, all the things. Also, the time change is really weird. I remember being in Tokyo, everybody being on like a group text, like, are you up? Yep, me too. It was like 4 a.m. Yep, are you awake? Yeah, me too. Like, that's really hard. You have to just do your best. All of us wore compression socks on the plane. It keeps the swelling down. If I have a picture with my legs up, Janelle and I were in the very last row of the airplane. I have a picture if I can find it, I'll insert it. Just to and thankfully dancers were in front of me. I would never have done this if I was not behind dancers. But because we were all in a line, we all had our feet up. So we're like, you're a dancer too, cool. Sorry, get used to it. And I remember being in the plane and we would get up and, you got to keep your body as best you can, but that's why that day off is so, so vital. With touring, sometimes small groups will go out, not necessarily arranged by New York City Ballet. So for example, a year after I got into the company, Niels Martens organized a group of us to go to Barcelona to do a ballet he had choreographed that was not organized by New York City Ballet. That he organized the tour and we went with him. Or Daniel 𝐂𝐷𝐿𝐵𝐻t has Stars of American Ballet. He organizes that and you go with him. So that's not necessarily a New York City Ballet tour. That's a separate independent tour. So when I went to Barcelona, Niels organized it. And I think there was 12 of us that went. I actually had my 19th birthday in Barcelona. Another fun story about Paris is on the day off in between the 2 weeks. we went to Versailles. A big group of us went to Versailles, like a huge group of us went to Versailles. And I have a couple of star-studded photographs that I want to show you. You can see in this one, we've got Danny, we've got John Stafford, who is now the director of New York City Ballet. We've got Alan Pfeiffer. A lot of you know Alan Pfeiffer from the On Point series. He teaches at SAB now. His now wife, Megan. I love this photograph. I think it's just like there's a lot of star power in this photograph. But I remember going with Sterling Hiltine and Robbie Fairchild and just Danny, and just a bunch of us went to Versailles, and it was just such a fun time. But again, like that one day off in between weeks, we did try and take advantage of it. And we had that experience, and it was just so much fun. So again, while it is work focused, you do get to enjoy yourself while you're there. So that's really it with touring. I think, you know, a tour day operates the same way a normal day would in a ballet company. You take company class, and then you rehearse, and then you perform. So it's really no different. You're just in a different location. It's not like anything is too terribly unique. I think it's just learning the space you're in, learning the stage you're on, if you're on a rake stage, figuring out where class is, and then going to rehearsal. So it's just logistics get tricky, but your day is not any different other than you're in a different place. If you have any more questions about it, leave me a comment in the box below, and we'll maybe do a touring part 2. But I am going to do a new analyzation. What do I call it? Ballet Deconstructed. That's what I call it. Ballet Deconstructed series of some of the ballets that City Ballet did in Paris. So they have aired publicly. They are filmed publicly. So I can do them. So anyway, love you guys so much. Good to see you all. If you missed whatever latest videos it was. Oh, color season. That's what that was. By the way, I was wrong again, but not far off. Not far off. I did get professionally analyzed by the queen, Carol Braley herself. So maybe we'll do a video if you can't guess what it is by this top. But she was right. She was right. If you want an updated color series, I was wrong again, sort of. Anyway, I'll see you guys soon. Much love. Bye.